Welcome to the Evolve Podcast, an open forum on personal growth and cultivating a positive mindset. I'm your host, Joe Fitzpatrick, and today on the show we have Elaine Diggs, also known as Miss Elainius. Elaine is an accountant in her full-time job, but outside of work, she works as the lead hype woman, I would say, for Richmond, Virginia and the surrounding area. I've been aware of Elaine's work for a few years now through other like Richmond tourism promoters like the Richmond Experience and Richmond Grid and Milo. And most recently, I had Miles Brown, also known as Milo, on the podcast last year, and he mentioned that you guys were doing a collaboration at the time. I don't know if that's still happening or not, but we can talk about that. So yeah, really excited to have you here. Such an influential voice in the Richmond market, and I want to hear all about your journey to how you got started to where you are now, and what that means to you. So thanks for being here, Elaine.
Absolutely. I'm excited. I think local podcasts just have so many gems to share. So it's awesome you're doing this. Thanks.
Appreciate that. So yes, I gave a high level overview of what you do. Can you give me a more specific, detailed perspective on what you do as a content creator?
Sure. So informally, I always like to say it's an open diary of exploring Richmond. I think what I've tried to focus on specifically and what differentiates my page is it's a lot of lower level in some ways, like small businesses. So everyone knows the big small business in Richmond, like a Hardywood and a Lewis Ginter. And those kinds of events always get a lot of different kind of media coverage. But below that is just an awesome level of Richmond activity and small business and just people putting in this exact same amount of work and time to making our city cooler. And I didn't really see that level of events being hyped up. So not only is it really fun to attend personally, but I think a lot of other people want to know what's going on. And again, kind of at that level of, yeah, it's owned by one person. It's organized by maybe a small group, and they have a $0 media budget, but they're doing cool things. So I think it's really focusing on that and still ultimately being a to-do guide around Richmond.
Yeah. And I am so impressed with like the level of detail that goes into all your posts and like your stories. It seems like you follow like every business in Richmond and event planner and promoter. And, I'm sure there's a lot of work on the back end that goes into making those posts happen. And it's clearly something you're very passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree that something I've learned myself is that the easier it looks or the final product, that it probably took a lot more work in the end. So it's definitely something I've figured out through my own work and then just seeing other people's final products and ultimately content. And when the content looks good, it's because that was that many extra hours into it on the back end.
So where did your passion for all things Richmond come from? Did you grow up in this area?
So I grew up in Charlottesville and I got accepted into the University of Richmond and loved my time there. But I stand that it is a bubble and you don't get to know much about the actual city. And I think the university is doing a better job. I would like to also plug that in. I see students a lot more and I'm like, wow, I never went off campus. But ultimately when I graduated, I took a job in Richmond, not knowing much about the city. And frankly, I fell out of love pretty quickly with Richmond. I only knew the service level of Richmond. It was Scott's Edition, sometimes going downtown for First Fridays. And that was the extent of what I did, what I could really talk about when even guests came in. Like, what should we do? I'm like, I don't know, hit the breweries. And again, fell out of love with Richmond as a city, as just a place to do things. And I was like, well, it's time to make my move. I was planning to move, and then 2020 hit. And I had a dear friend at the same time, perfect timing, say, before you leave the city, you have some time to think about it. Why don't you deep dive into why you don't like Richmond? And I really appreciate that question, basically pitch to me or challenge, because once I started deep diving into Richmond, I actually really liked what I discovered. And I was a bit lost of why, again, this smaller group of Richmonders and activities weren't being hyped up. And if I had known about it, I would have never even been in the position of maybe moving or just not like hyping up Richmond to my friends or any guests that came in. So it ended up evolving into this, okay, I can't be the only person who lives in Richmond who wants to know like the nitty gritty, the really cool stuff going on that, 10 people might show up, but it's also like a super small like room. And I've never been to an intimate concert of an audience of 10 or less. And it's the coolest thing I've ever done. So stuff like that was both kind of fulfilling and like changing my perspective on Richmond. And then also I felt like there was a market. There's a market out there of people who want to find that side of Richmond. So kind of drove me to where we are now.
That's awesome. And as far as like the market that you serve, are you like working with these small business owners to help them promote their businesses and events?
Yeah. My market's like twofold. So I am very business focused, and I reach out to them the most, especially some of the ones where I've noticed you've got great events and I don't really see any hype around you. This really pertains to like, especially small businesses that open that just literally flip the sign that says from closed to open. And that is their promo. I'm like, all right, we can do more than that for you. And I kind of focus it as that as my market. Again, those who don't have a budget. That's kind of almost how I look at it, is like, if I don't see you putting out, a ton of article, a ton of PR, and you can't hire an influencer, you can't hire a giant media team, you're probably for me. I'm just a community platform. I don't make any money. I know I should eventually monetize, but I'm going to lose some of that awesome side of Richmond if I monetize. And so that's, a whole different discussion, but that's my focus to my market, is those who just need a little more love, a little more hype, and might not have the budget for it.
Yeah, that's interesting to know that you are not monetized, but you do it out of love for the community. I think that really speaks volumes to your character as well as to your passion for the work you do, especially since you do such great detailed research and have a personal investment in all of these different businesses that you want to support. I think that's really admirable. And as far as like your influence, I know you have a big influence because you've been doing this for a while. When did you get started like promoting all of these small businesses and like tourism events?
Again, I felt like I was on the move from Richmond in 2020. And when I deep dove into what is Richmond, why do I not like it, make sure I'm maybe like not going to another city that I thought was like Richmond, which I didn't like. That took me about a year. And when I started realizing, hey, I think, I didn't pull a curtain into something hidden necessarily, but I was like, more people need to know about this and shine a light on it. That all kind of culminated into this page around 2021. Okay. It was also much easier to hype up business once you could in some way visit them, and restrictions became a little easier to work with. And so about 2 years now, I would say, would be where I felt like, yes, this is the miscellaneous page. And this is my mission, my drive, and what I've been doing. So it's been a wild journey, because every like event, every decision I make is kind of like a pivot. I think a pivot in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So it's fun.
How so? How would it be a pivot in the right direction?
So I think, a big piece of where this page end up, I think it's one is I need to get off. I don't want to get off of social media, as I don't want to have social media, but I think having a website is like the next big step. And that means that I need to have something, I think, extremely accessible to everyone, that has zero barriers, that if a small business wants to be on there or someone who just moved here, I'm serving both, the people who want the information and the people who have the information that want to get it out there. And then other small pivots I would say is just, what exactly am I focusing on? I think a big question I get is, what is considered small business? Because I think it is fair. I don't discount Hardywood. I don't discount VMFA or any of those places as local. And I don't discount them as, they're not big box stores. But I think defining who I'm going to support and then small business from there has been a really tough, kind of ever-changing definition for myself.
Yeah, I'm sure. I would agree with you. They're not exactly like small business, but they're not exactly like big box or chain stores. So I'm sure finding your niche has been really, really interesting and exciting. So you didn't do anything before 2020, or was there any other type of like promotion before then?
I had a little run with it. So because I did, oh my gosh, this is so fun. I'm saying I didn't like Richmond so much on this podcast, but because I didn't like Richmond, I actually started a travel blog, because every weekend I would travel. I would just travel somewhere, just the cheap travel guide kind of girl, where you're just like, oh yeah, I stayed in a room in an Airbnb, but the $30 a night was worth it. The guy was great. Here's the link kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think even then I was kind of setting this foundation for, I want, no matter what kind of my page is talking about, to be accessible. It's all about, like, why gatekeep any information? And I started practicing that. And again, just being, how transparent is too transparent on social media? What do I share and not overshare? Learning all that with the little travel blog of like 6 to 8 months before the pandemic hit was a nice like warm up to something much bigger. But again, I kind of fell out of nowhere. Accounting is very different from what I do for fun. So I think it is also a part finding that balance of like left brain, right brain, creative on a desk or in a desk job. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's really cool that you get to express like both sides of your personality, like the more rational accounting side, in your day job, and then the more of like fun, outgoing, social, like creative side with your brand. I assume that was something that you did intentionally, and have found great value in having both aspects of that as part of your life.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the nail. It's a good balance. And I feel like I'm always trying to find more of it, or just kind of know when, okay, that's taken up too much of my day or too much of my even month. And I'm like, where was the fun, or where was just enjoying life?
Yeah. And, speaking of balance, like how much like time do you have to like devote to like do your research and like, create the content for these like events on like a weekly basis?
That has definitely evolved from, I used to do the classic scroll, save, kind of regurgitate in my own words, the event list or whatever, mini guide, for instance. And I really evolved my process, because I was probably in the mornings I would get up before work, and I for an hour would scroll, save, etc. After work, I would either physically be out there at an event or at least posting something. And to sandwich my time like that, I think was definitely burning me out, but also actually not the right way of going about looking for information. So again, I say scrolling, or I led with that, because it felt like that was the only way I could get information, was to scroll and to somehow find who posted what first, and just this real immediate need to be the first one posting about something. And now I feel like over time, because I've also formed relationships, I've relied much more on businesses actually reaching out to me first, saying, hey, this week I've got this going on. Can I send you a graphic or just like some bullet points? And I just copy, paste, and I can put that into my mini guide. And it's less hours of me scrolling on my phone to find it.
Yeah.
So I think I've realized like relationships matter in a lot of ways, but especially to curate information. I mean, they want to get their information out. They've already kind of typed it up. Why am I retyping and finding and scrolling when I could just reach out and say, hey, do you have something you'd like to promote this week? I'll just copy paste. And that transition has been big for how I use my time.
Yeah. Do you have a mailing list that you use as well?
I do not. I'm not that organized yet. I think the mailing list, the website, that's all a different bucket and something I need to refocus on at some point.
I feel like you could have two. You could have one for like the business owners and then one for like the regular consumers. I'm sure you've thought about this already, but
I haven't, but I love that idea too. And when I do that, I will have to double tag you and just say, hey, you heard it live here first.
Awesome. With the other like guidebook accounts, have you like collaborated or like shared information with other accounts like the ones I mentioned, like the Richmond Experience or like Richmond Grid, things of that nature?
Yeah. So for the Richmond Experience, I used to be a contributing writer for them. That was really fun. I think they were just great mentors of what is guide writing, how to be succinct, how to, just make guides look nice, because it's one thing to be wordy and it's another thing to be presentable and get the same information across essentially. So I did that for a few months, over a year ago at this point. And then other than that, I guess specific collaboration, I think more informally, I enjoy just kind of like we echo off of each other, just, hey, like this is on our radar, and we'll tag each other. And I'm talking about other platforms now, like, as you said, the Richmond Grid, the Rick Today, platforms like that have just been awesome in the sense of we all just share information, or we'll send each other information like, hey, just want to make sure this is on your radar because I know you do a calendar or a similar guide, which I think is awesome, because at the end of the day, it sounds cheesy, but working by yourself really doesn't do anyone justice, and it definitely doesn't do you justice either. So
yeah, especially when you are literally relying on the community to help support you in building that content. It just makes the community even stronger when you can have that cross collaboration between platforms.
Yep.
It's really special. And I think it definitely speaks to like the small town feel of Richmond, like even more.
Absolutely. We are an awesome city, but definitely a small town in some ways like that.
Yeah, I love it. So when you're not doing miscellaneous or you're working at your job full time, what do you like to do for fun?
I would say a year ago, my answer would have been totally different, but we bought a house about a year ago. And so I am absolutely that lame homeowner who's like watching HGTV, pushing the boundaries of like YouTube classes to say, oh yeah, I can go landscape my front yard. But I would say definitely putting a lot of time in the house and trying to find projects that are both improvement projects and actually fun. So it isn't just more work. But I would say outside of the responsibility that we're trying to turn into being fun, I really just enjoy Richmond's trails. There's just something to be said about like all the different kinds of nature that's accessible. It's within like 5-10 miles. And I'm actually pretty embarrassed to say I don't know the trails very well in Richmond. So like,
okay,
it's just between learning and just being outside. I'm like, I know I got to do more of it. I know Richmond has all of it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I've been living in Richmond for like 6 years now, 7, maybe closer to 7. But I'm still getting familiar with the trails. I run and ride my bike. I've gotten into mountain biking in the past year.
Dang.
And, my friends take me out on trails that I have no idea where we are sometimes, but it's always fun. Do you do any like running or biking, anything like that?
Well, my boyfriend makes fun of me for this, but he's going to crack up when he listens to this episode. I do not really exercise, but when I do, it's at 6 a.m. with November Project at VMFA on Wednesdays.
I used to do November Project. I stopped doing it when the pandemic happened, and then I switched to like working out at the gym, doing more strength training. But yeah, November Project's a great group. Actually, last week I had on David Smith, who's a regular at November Project. He's a close friend of mine.
Nice. See, Richmond's a small world, and I love it. I do love it for that. That's awesome.
Yeah. How long have you been doing November Project?
Since January of 2023. So we're new, but we've been through 2 rough seasons of like bitter cold, and now it's the 85 degrees at 6 a.m. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough to get up early and do burpees, that's for sure.
yes, the worst word in the morning, but yes.
Do you guys live near the VMFA?
I got pretty close, and I'm pretty happy. I can't say I can run to November Project though. So, thank goodness.
Does your boyfriend do a November Project with you as well?
No, he is all about the working out after work. And it's funny because I love to jumpstart my day with a workout, and then he likes to like end his day with a workout because he also is actually an accountant, and we're both office people. And I like to get moving and then work, and he literally loves to just like decompress and then work out after work. And I'm like,
yeah, I get that. My wife is kind of the same way. She would prefer to work out in the morning, and I would prefer to work out, later on in the day. So I get it. That's cool. So prior to joining November Project, were you like not really working out as much?
I cheered in college, and I think I got burnt out by the 7 a.m. workouts and just the almost too much of a schedule just around more than fitness, in my opinion. It just burned me out in the end of the day. And I think after that, I've actually had this discussion on my page a few times. I really wrestle with workout classes, and I know it's trending. There's a lot of amazing local gyms, I do want to say, that have anywhere from bar to HIIT workouts, etc. But I think while I didn't really necessarily want the openness of a gym, just, you're on your own, you better have a schedule or regimen. I think I got intimidated by going to a few workout classes, and I just didn't know what I was doing. And so then I was kind of stuck in the middle of like, okay, I wanted a little structure. I don't want to just be in an open gym because I probably won't do much. So that is also part of the reason why I found November Project. And I was like, it really wakes you up and is really structured, but it's only once a week. And while I do need to find more of a rhythm, it's actually been an awesome solution so far.
That's good. Yeah. I know they do occasionally do multiple workouts a week if like they're doing a Hell Week or some special event. But that's not too often. So you don't necessarily always have to commit to multiple days a week.
Right.
But yeah, they're great. It's such a positive community, just wanting to get people moving and bringing the community together. It's really special. At the point in my life when I was going to November Project, it was exactly what I needed to. I found great friendships there, people who were willing to prioritize an active lifestyle, which is something that I was looking for, and just have a good time. So I'm really excited to hear that you're checking it out and enjoying it so far.
Oh, yeah. I like how you put it, too. It's exactly what you needed at that time. I agree. It's just a good presence. And as you said, like, you're hanging around people who are probably, all kinds of motivated. And it's just great for you, wherever you find your own motivation in all of it. So yeah, I do like it. You're really good point.
My only gripe, though, with November Project is I wish they would like teach people fundamentals more, because I feel like they're just like, everyone just do burpees and push-ups when like maybe you've never done a burpee or push-up before. And I feel like they could make it a little bit more accessible and potentially like, make sure people don't get injured.
Right.
That's just like something I thought could be more beneficial. But I know it's difficult when you're trying to manage like so many people at a certain time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think especially being an athlete, like when form matters, and you're critiqued on that all the time, and it's not just about working out or breaking a sweat. I definitely agree with that too. And I agree it'd be hard to implement if like, you don't want to, all the professionals that basically go there, because there are some great marathon ultra runners there. Yeah. I know to them it would be kind of slowing down the pace of the class in a sense, but right. There's an odd balance. So I am curious. I know it's been brought up to them before. So that's interesting you bring that up. Okay. Because I know it's something that they are working on, and that's someone's going to hopefully come up with a good medium, because there's definitely a balance, back to that balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe like like a designated spotter in each group, something like that.
Yeah. You should email them. That's a great idea.
So let's talk nutrition. What do you like to eat? Like what fuels your workouts? What fuels your passion for the work that you do?
Love it. Yes. So I'm a big tea advocate. There's nothing against coffee, but I try and stay away from it. I think it's very personal choice because I also am very hyper on coffee because I'm not used to it. You can go down that whole chain as well. But big Rostas fan. I try and go there, try a new tea, just learn about herbal teas in general, past like a green tea and black tea. So I'd say that's like my go-to drink is I could do iced tea, hot tea. I can drink tea throughout the day. I even drink the sleepy time tea at night. But I would say is like one of my favorite things to enjoy that I know is built in my routine at some point. And then health-wise, food-wise, something I appreciate about small business is the transparency of where they source things. So one of my biggest pushes with my boyfriend right now is that we are actually trying to shop farmers markets more. And especially with our local meats. Everyone knows there's a lot going on with big mass-produced farms and animals out in those conditions. So from many standpoints, we want to shop local, just from produce to animal products. But even from a health perspective, I think that's going to be our biggest journey in the coming weeks is we are just trying to source locally at farmers markets. We know where it comes from. And it really does taste better. So I think our biggest barrier, obviously, is budget.
Right.
It gets pricey.
Have you had a chance to visit any of the farms that you're sourcing the produce and meat from?
Interesting you say that. No, but I'm super excited to visit Autumn Olive Farm soon. That's out past Charlottesville, actually. And we did just visit Celeste Farms, where Goticato gets a lot of their stuff and is the same owner, Ian. And he's doing a great job of also having that mission of just farms, transparency of where you get your food, why it matters. So that was a really cool journey on a farm. It was like a 30-minute walking tour and then dinner. And we learned a lot just from why these practices matter at the local level. And it was eye-opening. It reaffirmed why we should also shop at local farmers markets and source that way.
Yeah, I saw that on your page. It looked like a really cool like space and event, and like how they like set up a like farm to table dinner in the middle of the field was really beautiful as well.
Yeah, they did a good job. And again, it's so cool when you support local because you might be front facing supporting one person, but that group was supporting actually 3 or 4 people, and they donate to RVA community fridges. And now I realize, okay, when I'm supporting one person, I'm probably supporting more than one behind the scenes. I think that's awesome too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, making that information accessible, information is power, knowledge is power, and spreading more awareness about all of these different businesses, are supporting their livelihood, supporting them in ways that you probably will never fully understand. And that goes down to not just the business owners, but their employees as well. So, any awareness that you can bring to what's happening at these places, just has ripple effects across the way. Yeah.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
Cool. We're moving towards wrapping up, but I am curious to know, like, with the work that you do as miscellaneous and promoting small businesses and bringing this awareness to Richmond. What is your why for all of this effort that you put into this project, and your desire to scale it? Like, why do you want to do that?
Great question. I think what initially comes to my mind is that when you connect with other people, and it might be through supporting a small business by shopping, whether it's just even on social media by sharing their posts. And again, connecting at some level, I think it just reminds us, not only is Richmond great, but that where you live matters and that you do have impact and you can help others. Because at first I thought I was like, oh, well, I'm helping a small business. And that was the end goal and where it stopped as far as the benefits of a to-do page that hypes up smaller organizations. But then people started messaging me and they said that, you know, when they visited the small business, they actually ended up going to an event and meeting their new best friend in Richmond, or they ended up, you know, feeling less lonely because they thought they were the only person who liked this genre of music, when in reality, there's like groups out there in Richmond who've been jamming for years at Plan 9, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's just that connectivity that is really the core of what I do is like, yeah, I just want to connect you with someone that also has your similar interest or likes to do what you do on the weekends too. And like just that sense of like, you're not alone. There's something in Richmond for you. There are groups that have been doing this. And also if there isn't someone doing what you're interested in, then you should start it. And watching that kind of like organic growth of just, hey, I'm interested in this, anyone else, and watching the traction and the momentum build from there is pretty cool.
Sounds like you have like several apps that you could potentially build, like whether that's for dating or meetups or, you know, interest groups, like just bringing people together in a digital format. You know, obviously there's a lot of other companies that do that now in various forms, but that'd be really cool if you could like meet someone based off like a shared interest and, you know, get coffee together or something.
Yeah. And it's so funny you say that because there are new groups in Richmond, like in real life RVA, trying to adult. There are these groups that are just like, hey, we're going to do different themed activities every week. And you come on basis of your interest. And trust me, you're going to find a friend or more than a friend. And they just leave it at that. And I think that's fabulous. That's exactly what you just said is just find other people doing what you love. Like you're going to find cool stuff around the corner.
And cool people too.
Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. So I want to talk about your collaboration with Milo. Is that something that still is happening?
So last year at this time, he was really getting down with the awesome drone photography.
Yeah.
And at that point, I thought I was going to be publishing a website. So he had kind of known I needed more of that like big scale videography, and he offered to do like kind of a sunset piece in Manchester. And I was like, heck yeah. So we started there and we did crush it. And now it's on me to just put the website up.
Okay.
But I think as far as that collaboration, it was more of just like, you know, building his like portfolio and practicing. And I was like, I mean, what you consider practice, I think is almost perfection. So I'd love to work together in some facet, and that's what ended up happening. And so again, it's on me to take that video, put it, because basically that's going to actually be the opener on my website, because he does amazing work, and I think he represents exactly what I want to represent in Richmond, which is, yeah, everyone knows Carytown, but do you know the other neighborhoods in Richmond? So we just really saw eye to eye on that, which was awesome.
I mean, he definitely has a great eye for capturing beautiful videos and photography, and just telling the story of all that Richmond has to offer, you know, which is something you both have in common.
Yes. Loved his energy. Still love his energy. I just wait till he posts the next thing. So I'm like, oh, great. What do I have to learn now? He's also like visually teaching us stuff about our city, and I love that.
Absolutely. And he's such a nice guy. Super cool, down to earth. Love you, Milo. Next is our mindset moment. What is a quote or phrase that you use to help you stay positive in difficult circumstances?
I don't know if I have a specific quote, but something that I hear repetitively and that really inspires me is just that, you know, every low is just your momentum to like get back up. Like, for instance, a lot of people say, oh man, you hit a bottom, like that stinks. And I'm like, it stinks. Trust me, it stinks. But at the same time, isn't that low point supposed to say, okay, that was, whether it's this week's low, this year's low, but in like the grand scheme of things, it was just like a little dip. Like it was just like you can't keep climbing. You can't keep going. Like everyone thinks it's like this great graph you used to see in like third grade, just go up, up, and up. But like these small dips are just, it's natural. It's going to happen. They're still going up. Even if you're dipping a little, the overall like momentum is, hey, you're doing a great job and you should expect these dips. I love that. I love that. Just like, they're just dips, holes. They're not setbacks. Everyone has them. Like, your life isn't a graph. I love that. So maybe not a quote, but that is what I always think of.
I like that. Yeah, there's peaks and valleys along the way. It's not linear,
Yeah.
The evolution of oneself, it has many, many steps along the way. Like, like a staircase, it doesn't just go up straight.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, very cool. Next is PMA Warrior of the Week. Who is someone who inspires you to maintain a positive mindset?
I would say, actually, my boss that I work with directly for my accounting job, he is someone who always, in an appropriate way, like makes a joke about everything, right? Like, he could be down, the department just went through something that's going to set us back a little, but just a little dip. And he always goes, yeah, well, you know what, la, 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 la. And then just great punchline. It just lightens the mood. And I don't think, some people would say, well, isn't that gaslighting? But he really does always know how to bring the room back up. He is able to address the issue, but then just remind people, yeah, it happens and it's okay. And in fact, tomorrow is going to be fine. And in fact, next week and next month's reports are going to be great. And it's just kind of almost zooming out and being like, remember, it's okay, guys. It's going to be awesome. And then again, I can't do it, but he has great punchlines. Every time there's an issue, he's like, here's a punchline. We're going to be okay. And especially in my 9 to 5, because it can be monotonous and it might not be my dream job, but I appreciate that kind of energy at work. I appreciate that kind of leadership because it is definitely sets the tone up, bottom to top, top to bottom.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Elaine. It was great talking to you. Thank you for being here on the podcast.
Absolutely. Congrats on your podcast. It's awesome.
Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Yep. Bye.
Welcome back to Evolve Podcast. Thank you for being here for part 2 of your episode. We recorded the first part in July, and now we're in May of 2024. So I thought it was fitting to have you back to tell us about what's been going on.
So excited to be on one.
Have you been on any other podcasts?
I have, and now of course it's going to escape my brain of what the title is. But they're also a local podcast, and I feel so bad for not having that prepared.
That's okay. Well, whoever they are, love to them. Love to the local podcast community, and we're stoked to be part of it. So last time we spoke, you were telling me about some house renovations that you were working on. How's that going?
It's good. I think once you get a year under your belt, you realize what you should be spending money on, what you don't need to be spending money on, and what you should really just wait and see, because again, you want to buy, you want to fill the house up, you want to do all the landscaping, etc. And now we have a rhythm of, do we actually want to do it? Wait a minute, maybe watch for sales. Again, just taking it slower. That's the whole point. So I think we're really getting to the rhythm of house owning. So it's been nice. Cool.
So you told me that you were watching YouTube videos to help you with your renovations. So did that help with that perspective of figuring out what you needed and what you didn't need?
I think it ended up being asking the folks we live around the most. And at the end of the day, they know the landscaping, where the sun hits, for instance, and just really what has worked and not worked in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And so we actually leaned off of kind of content or just YouTube, HGTV, etc., and really just honed in on advice from our neighbors.
That's cool. Relying on that community even more, which is so important to you, as I know. That's great. Can you tell me about some of the projects that you guys have accomplished so far?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest ones is we're doing like kind of hardscaping around the house. So our house is basically not really surrounded by much. It looks like a lot of older trees had to either be cut down or, unfortunately probably got a disease or just something where they had to basically be uprooted. And so it is a pretty bare space. So again, our vision was to just fill it up immediately, and now we've slowly put 2 trees in to give a little privacy. They're small, but it's something. And then kind of immediately around the house, just mulch it, put bushes in, and just give it a little more of like a foreground and background, a little more 3D look than just the house on a hill. So that was our main project, and we're still like chugging away.
Cool. Well, the good thing about a blank slate is there's, so much you can do with it, right? So, even though it is a little sparse now, there's still, a lot more room for growth, which is really, really good.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah.
So summer, spring, all that's abound. And now it's our second year of getting to see things bloom, things we planted last fall. So I'm excited.
What are some other new developments that's getting you excited, like in your business and your career? I know you just got a new job. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I'm super excited because at first I was like, I'm going to take this full time. That's the goal. And it still is the goal, but I think it is a balance of getting maybe still a traditional 9-to-5 piece of things just because of health insurance, things that keep us in the regular grind versus the creative side of things. But I am really excited because since last year's conversation even, I think I have focused on building a more traditional media kit and saying, hey, I've loved doing this for free, but when it comes to being sustainable and maybe not driving myself crazy or spending too much of my own money, there's a time where I'm like, okay, let's price out what I do. I think the most exciting element of that though is that I'm going to not charge small businesses themselves. I actually am in the finishing steps or the just kind of putting the ribbon on it of a media package that actually will not charge the small business directly. I'm really excited for that to unfold because for me to take this full time, again, I do need to make money. I can't keep shelling out money.
Of course, yeah.
But I know to the core that the people that I want to cover, the small businesses that need the spotlight, again, can't pay for $500 posts, can't pay, and that's okay. So I think I figured it out, and that's been a big focus this year too.
Do you have any plans on scaling that for, the bigger small businesses that we talked about? I'm not going to name any names, we don't need to, but there are quote unquote small businesses that could afford, certain marketing packages like that.
Absolutely. So it's actually going to strain away from direct, marketing sales even. So I would really like to attack it, and you'll be the first one to know this, that I really want to go after a Dominion Energy or just all these other organizations where you basically see them sponsoring so they can just get their name out there.
Yeah.
Different local events and different just places where they can put their name, programs, etc. And the biggest thing about all that is that sometimes I look at that traditional marketing style of running your name on a ticker at a UR basketball game. You're only reaching whoever's at the basketball game and for only 10 seconds. But what if I use some of that traditional marketing dollar and said, hey, why don't you sponsor me visiting a restaurant? And I can say thanks to Dominion Energy today, I was able to support a new business that opened. And of course, some people are oh, you put the corporate money in there, whatever. But the whole point is that I'm still able to make money for myself and keep this sustainable. And I'm also I do not have to charge a small business.
Right.
Kind of to go back to what about the big small businesses? I think there is a piece of my media kit that tackles that. Hey, I know your revenue per month is this. I know I made this X amount of sales, etc. for you. That's a whole different piece of it. But actually, my whole focus on a media kit is that I'm actually going to be turning to even bigger, locally, at least situated places, not necessarily fully locally owned, and ask them for the marketing dollar to say, hey, if you just want Dominion Energy on some kind of platform name, graphic, etc., why not put it on my graphic and let's together support local?
Sounds great. Yeah, and I'm curious to know, have you ever worked with or considered working with different professional organizations the Chamber of Commerce or any other organizations that support small business owners?
Absolutely. I've had a privilege of working with Visit Richmond and like Venture Richmond, and I think there's definitely a lot of room for partnership there and continual partnership. I think that is a piece of it that I haven't built my media kit out to, because I think it'll work a little different because they do actually have dollars that are directly into, hey, can we get, whether we're hiring a influencer or we're hiring some type of media that is going to be like that kind of traditional media. But I also think that other than those kinds of partnerships, I'm really going to focus on actually the bigger dogs like Dominion Energy and Altria.
For sure. So tell me more about this media kit. Like, how are you planning on rolling it out? I know we talked about, you building out a website. Is that part of this media kit plan?
Yes. So I'm super excited because I think at the core of all of this, the only way I can help spread the media kit is through people giving connections. So a lot of my, whether it's frankly friends or people who are willing to help, have just said, hey, I have a connection, Altria, I have a connection, or if you're trying to reach this business, I have a connection. And I really appreciate leaning on people just helping me out, because in the end of the day, you're right. Otherwise, it's a cold call, cold email, just sending a media kit. And I understand that these places haven't necessarily worked with influencers. Why would Dominion Energy need to work with one? Why would Altria? It's just kind of shifting their mindset and some of where their community dollar bucket goes. And I know that if I have someone internally, it'll help a lot. So that's kind of how I've steered pitching my media kit.
It sounds like a really good strategy. I mean, Richmond is a city, like we talked about, but a lot of people do think about it like a small town. And even though it is a city, it is a small city, and relationships matter at the end of the day. Of course, that matter. The relationships matter anywhere, but especially here. And I found that to be true. It's all about who you know, right? And I think relying on your connections to the people in the community that you've made, these past few years as you've created this content, will only help you, going forward.
I'm excited, and I appreciate everyone's part and wherever they can help me too. So I agree. It's a small city, and like that's just a great use of like resources, but we're small because you look around and someone's there to help you.
Yeah. Have you worked more broadly with like Visit Virginia or any other organizations like that?
I had the opportunity to work for Visit Virginia. I was actually out of the country for the event that they wanted to collaborate with, but I am excited to again kind of extend my network in that sense too. I think at the same time, I want to be careful not to all of a sudden have content that goes outside of the 804, because some of those opportunities have ended up being, we know you're Richmond based, but we'd love to like get some content outside of Richmond and just pitch places that don't forget about day trips outside of here. So I had to be careful, I think, in the end of the day, as long as it doesn't compromise my focus or lens, which is here. Yeah.
So how would you define that focus for the work you're doing going forward?
I would definitely want to continue to elevate those who I either don't see in traditional media or just frankly getting the voice, but yet they've opened a brick and mortar, or they feel like they are kind of stuck with how to further promote themselves. Because at the end of the day, I'm just one more platform to help get the word out. And of course, those I'm actually partnering with, I would like to stay with independently owned, non-franchise businesses. I think there are, again, definitely room to talk about franchises, but I'd like to stay locally sourced and independent.
Totally. Last time we talked about you were getting started going to like November project workouts. I was wondering if you're still doing that. If so, how's it going?
I actually have taken a pause. I am one of those folks who I think during the winter months it's super tough.
For sure.
And I actually have been exploring more just workout options in Richmond in general. I think I mentioned in the last time we chatted that I'm not a traditional workout class friendly person. I do like to kind of just go with the flow. Every time is different. With that said, there's been some other great run clubs and things I've started to kind of dabble in, whether it's Effect Run Club. I really like the Trail Runners. It's a new group as well. Both Effect Run Club and Trail Runners are a Tuesday group. But I will definitely get back in a November project once it warms up and it's a little easier to get up at 6 a.m.
Yeah, for sure. I've been revisiting their Instagram page, and part of me kind of misses it, but also, waking up at 6 a.m. is really hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially on days like today when it's raining outside.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes.
There's also some other great groups, like you mentioned. A friend of mine also told me about We Off the Couch, that's been going pretty strong for a year or two. Have you checked them out?
Yes, I was able to do 2 runs with them. Their Saturday morning runs were great because it's a 2 and 5 mile option.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ran with them maybe 2 months ago for their Black History Month run around the city and downtown area. That was pretty cool. So I just try again and dabble because I'm not a big workout person. I know it's already a push for me. So I appreciate different organizations again that are very drop-in, casual style.
Yeah, right on. So what is the plan for your brand going forward? You're launching this media kit. Do you have an expected release date for when you're going to be putting it out?
There will be a traditional media kit in the sense of there will be one-off posts where people can collaborate and we can hype them up for X amount of dollars. But what it actually is going to really look like is it's going to be contractual, because it'll be, for instance, Dominion Energy might say, okay, let's do 1 dinner out on Dominion a month. And again, we'll be supporting something local, you'll be doing your thing, and it'll have our name behind it. And so I would like to sign more of okay, let's sign a contract for a year doing that, or even a half year. And so that is really what it's going to look like. And so I'd like contracts being signed by 3rd quarter, September-ish time frame of this year. Mm-hmm. And it really won't start until 2025. It could start earlier, but I don't want to push myself. I really want to be able to plan out the content, make sure deliverables look good even before content starts rolling necessarily. But that is the goal, is by the fall, I'd love to know who I'm working with, what their expectations are, kind of the timeliness of things, and then roll it out by next year.
And do you have a timeline for the release of your website and more public facing content that you plan on putting out?
Sure. So my website is rolled out in levels actually as of now. So I would say maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people can view it. And it's really just trying to play with what happens when a lot of people log onto it, because I'm really excited that as far as a rollout date for that, hopefully the end of this spring. So I mean, latest late April, I consider kind of towards the end of spring. I mean, I know it's kind of middle, but that's just because, again, I want to make sure that when people are logging on, whether it's on the mobile device or desktop, it looks good from both angles. And I'm getting a lot of live feedback right now, and I know at some point I have to give it up and just hit live for everybody.
Right.
But it's been a big learning curve and really fun, and so hopefully people get to see it by the end of spring.
How have you been showing that to people? Is it a private link that you can just send to people at this point?
It's just a link and it'll have a password, and it's just password protected for now.
Okay, cool. Well, whenever that happens, please let us know we can share it with people. Are you still branding the business under Miscellaneous, or have you shifted that in any way?
I think I'm going to keep it that way. It's not the most direct name. I know it confuses people, and I love hearing it for the first time in public, sometimes people trying to pronounce it and then putting it together. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's a little bit of me in there, I'm not gonna lie, pretty directly. And then at the same time, when people ask what kind of pages it is in the end of the day, I still don't really know how to answer. It truly is miscellaneous content. So I feel pretty firmly about the name and sticking with it.
Is there anything else that you'd like to comment on that we haven't already discussed?
I would just like to say it's crazy to be sitting down with you again and kind of catching up, because it just always reminds me how much time has gone, how much progress has been made. Yeah. And at the same time, how hard I think both of us as any kind of creator works. It's unlike the 9 to 5, we're working all the time when people don't see it, all the behind the scenes that it takes to even get to this point, and recording and chatting. So it's exciting to see, and it's exciting to come back and keep the conversation going. Absolutely.
It's all about keeping the conversation going and maintaining those relationships, building that sense of community, and sharing it with other people, so they can also gain some insight or sense of belonging that, we're getting from the energy that we exchange here.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Cool. Well, thanks again, Elaine. Great seeing you, and we'll see you some other time out there at those events.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching Evolved Podcast. Follow at evolvedpodcast.co on Instagram for weekly updates. Subscribe to Evolved Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and like your favorite episodes. Production and editing by Joe Fitzpatrick. Our theme music, Endless Cruise, is written and performed by Fingers, spelled F1NG3RS.